So again, mastering deserves the medal for the most misunderstood process. And so much of my day-to-day is actually educating people on what can be fully realized in the mastering process, because some are under the impression that it's only for corrective purposes. In other words, if your mix is already perfect and balanced, why would you need an additional process to be introduced? And that's a very valid question, because sometimes a mastering engineer needs to know when to not do anything at all, because they are the final gatekeeper. They are the ones that are in a tuned environment, that work on music every day on the same monitors, in the same setting, so they know if something isn't quite there or is already just prime, ready for release, and anything added in addition will only create a level of disconnect and a little bit of over-processing that can create a veil, which is never what you want to do. So the first rule of mastering is do no harm, right? And only further enhance that connection. So let me talk about this a little further, because this idea of correcting in the mastering process versus creating textural feel and vibe, they run together, but they're also a little bit different. Let's say you receive a mix from a mixing engineer, and once you're in your room and your environment, you realize that the bass is just overpowering the mix, right? So let me zero my laser focus on that bass and start dialing things in and taking things out to really just soften that bass, and therefore, at that point, now that the bass is handled, everything will kind of just work out. Well, maybe, maybe not. Perhaps there's another way to just take that scenario and flip it around. If the bass is covering up the mix, well, maybe you should focus on the global mix. And that's what we do as mastering engineers. We're listening globally. So what I would probably do in that case, before just running for just the bass, and I'm listening globally, I would try to figure out a way to have that mix reach me. In other words, I'd probably start brightening and opening up into compression with EQ the music. Everything maybe above, 3K and up, maybe 3K, 6K, 10K. I'd start brightening everything, and as I do that, I'm also conscious of the shape of the bass. So at that point, once I open up my mix, I might start very lightly kind of carving around the bass area, and then because of that, having to work up it on top again, and I'm molding this clay statue, if you will, and I'm looking at all angles of it and watching how every part of the frequency spectrum influences every other part, right? And I'm reworking this thing, and when I'm done, it's connecting to me, right? And not just in an instant. I'm listening to how I'm connected to that music the entire way through as the song goes down. And that might mean I might need to do different things per section of the song, or as the song evolves. I might ride from that verse into that chorus with EQ in a particular way to make sure that that chorus really blooms out. And from that chorus into the next verse, I might dial it back a little bit to give it some breath, so that I can then come back again for the second chorus. So I'm conscious of all of those things, as a mixing engineer is too, but I'm just there to perhaps further it and maybe realize things that weren't quite realized in the mix, but the mix tells me all of those things in terms of where it wants to be. So instead of zoning in on what's wrong with something, throw that aside, and in your mind's eye envision where it needs to be. And all of those things that are wrong with it, if done right, will be corrected along the way by default, naturally. Because if you end up trying to zero in on what's wrong with something, it's almost like you're steering for what's wrong. You're conscious of what's wrong and your mind's not in the right place. If you throw that to the side and you're just conscious of what this needs to be to fully reach you as the person working on it, the beauty of that is 99% of the time, everybody else will experience the same thing. I found this in my day-to-day life. If I'm fully connected to that music and I just feel completely connected to it and nothing's in the way of that, everybody loves it. It just always happens that way. So I hope that's inspirational, because that's what music is. It brings us all together. We can all enjoy these processes, and mastering is certainly part of that too.
Hey, I hope you all enjoyed that and found it informative.
Now please hit the subscribe button.